Hello and welcome to NJ Biz Conversations. I'm your host, Jeff Kanige. My guests today are the co-founders of Mint Advertising in Chester. That's CEO Eric Schoenfeld and Chief Creative Officer Al Navarro. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thanks, Jeff. Good to see you.
Thanks for taking the time to do this. I appreciate it. I wanted to start by talking a little bit about the firm. Now, as I understand your story, you both worked in advertising in New York for before founding Mint some 20 some years ago. And the firm since then has worked with some pretty prominent brands, including Kroger, Applebee's, IHOP, Century 21. What else should our viewers know about Mint Advertising? What sets you apart?
Want me to take this, sir?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. What sets us apart? Well, I think there are a couple of things. First of all, longevity is one.
Okay.
We've been around for 22 years, and we're a boutique advertising agency, headquartered in New Jersey, but we work with clients, as you mentioned, some of them, but we work with clients all across the country. We have clients in Michigan, we have clients in California, and we work with brands that everyone's heard of, like Domino's Pizza and Applebee's and Kroger, which you mentioned. But we also work with B2B brands that are a little bit more niche, and you might not have heard of them unless you're in that specific industry. So,
Okay.
I think one thing that makes us different is that we kind of work with a wide variety of clients. I think these days some agencies are increasingly niche based. They service either one sector or one media. And we are resolutely generalists.
Okay. Now, I have to ask you, Al, about your appearances in both GQ and Automobile magazines. How did that come about?
Oh, wow.
Put
I
it
didn't
on
know
your
you'd
site,
ask me.
so I kind of figure you're
I
proud.
didn't know you'd ask me about that. I can speak to both of those pretty quickly. So first of all, I worked in New York for about a decade in advertising, and that's where Eric and I met. And I took a break and I worked for a very high-end clothing store that's owned by my friends. I will give them a shout out. It's Group in New York City. This is a Group sweater. This is a Group
Wow,
shirt.
okay.
I was their manager for about a year, and not only did I meet Leonardo DiCaprio and clean up his bird's poop, but that's a true story. Um, but I also was there when someone from GQ got a custom shirt done, so it was profiled. And then the automobile magazine, I had helped arrange this very large national car meet for a very specific niche car, and it was covered in automobile among other publications. So again, that's a question that I wasn't exactly expecting, but that's the answer.
Okay, well, glad to hear it. I'm sorry to surprise you with that. I was wondering. I saw that and I was like, how on earth did that happen? So okay, so let's go on. I want to talk about what businesses should know about what you do and what the advertising industry where the advertising industry general is. Businesses obviously have evolved dramatically over the past few years. I'm curious about the biggest changes you've seen and how that affects your work and your relationship with clients. I'm thinking more, I guess, in the terms of technology, which I'd like to talk about a little bit later. But I'm sure there are other things that have happened, particularly in the last 4 or 5 years, that have really changed the way you approach your business and you approach clients. Yes?
Yeah, and I would say through the pandemic, so many of our clients changed. They furloughed people and then they brought in certain people and they took on certain tasks themselves. So there's not one same thing we do for every client.
Okay.
So we have to work with clients and they tend to lean on us for fresh thinking. So they come to us and say, hey, this is a channel that we're trying to break into. Our team in-house is doing this. And that's like probably the biggest shift that we've seen is that there's more of a variety in how companies are instead of just outsourcing the whole thing or doing the whole thing in-house, there's a hybrid that we've just adapted to.
Okay, well that's interesting because the next question I was going to ask was how clients' expectations have changed, and are they what do they want, what do they think they want, and do they want the right things from their advertising spending at this point?
It's an interesting question. So the clients want sales, right? But they recommend brand type things. So it's our job to meld we're selling your brand, but also there's an ROI on it. And we try to make sure that things that we do for clients are not at financial risk. So we try to test ideas as much as possible.
Okay. All right. So you sort of help them along with what they need to do, was what you started to say at the beginning anyway.
For sure, yeah, that's our business, which is we've been doing this a long time. So we give advice and we consult and we bring ideas, and then we, as a team, we try, as I said, we try to test different things to see what works, rather than, we like the term "fail cheaply," so that you can go into certain areas and make sure that before you roll out and you just dedicate to one media, that you have some confidence that you're going to get the ROI that you're looking for.
Okay. Now, I mean, what's gone on in the past several years, aside from the pandemic, the rise of social media and how important that's gotten, the proliferation of disinformation and misinformation, has that made your job easier, harder? How do those kinds of things fit into what you do and what clients are looking for?
I think you brought up a great point. The proliferation, not just of, misinformation, but so many available channels now and so many ways to connect with the consumer, and the way the consumer, um, you know, um, processes and receives information. I mean, when Eric and I got in the business many years ago, I mean, you had broadcast television and maybe cable at the time, print advertising, billboards. But now, everyone, I'll pick up my phone for a second, just everyone's like this all the time,
Right.
right? And
Exactly.
you have to get, they're just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. So my point about this is that there's just so many different avenues that can, that can be used to um, deliver your message. And so a part of our challenge is advising clients on which ones we should try, what messaging we should try in different channels. Um, and then, I think as Eric said, hinted at, it's like, and if something doesn't work, just move on from that, right? Move on, because what's hot today might be not hot, in a couple of weeks.
Right.
So that's kind of interesting. We were joking around the other day. Do you remember Vine? Vine was like
Oh
this
yeah. Yeah.
big
Absolutely.
thing, right? Where's
Yeah.
Vine now? So it's kind of
Right.
it's just interesting how things change so fast. So
I'd also add, Jeff, that clients' budgets don't change. They
Okay.
might increase slightly year to year, but with more places to put that message, you can't spread it too thin. So, you want to be everywhere, but you really have to figure out where you're doing your branding, where you're doing your lead acquisition, where you're doing your retention marketing, and really kind of look at your budget in a much more disciplined way than let's just run some print ads, which was the good old days.
Well, I would wish they would continue to run print ads
Of
from my
course,
own
of course.
perspective.
Yeah,
Because that's actually why I was asking, because I'm sure you're aware the media landscape for those of us on this side of it has changed dramatically, with people looking for, pivoting to video and doing things like that. You mentioned Vine. Something that, things like that, Twitter, other things. Our clients, everybody's on this, I need to be on that. You still get that sort of dynamic with the people you work with.
hmm.
Actually, I want to speak to that, and I'm not going to mention the client, but recently, I would say over the past year, we had a client who, wanted to try social media, and we did, and we did a very concerted effort on it. And again, I won't name the platforms or the client, but we realized that the yield on it, while it got good like click-throughs, the actual leads that were converting
Mhm.
weren't great. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like the ROI wasn't there. So um, it is a challenge, that clients say, oh, you know, my kid, that's not what happened in this case, but my kid says I should be on X, or whatever it is. I use the
And if
word,
you don't test,
not
you never
literally X,
know, right?
but right. And we tried it, and there, like I said, there was some good engagement, but the leads didn't convert. So that's something we're reconsidering for 2025 for that specific client, that we're probably going to back off that a little bit.
Okay. By the same token, I think with what you just said, you're able to measure better now, aren't you? I mean, you can actually, instead of just sort of hoping that a print ad does what it's supposed to do and hope that it works, you can actually, with some of this technology at least, you can go back to the client and say, see, here's the problem, or here's what's working and here's not is what's not working. Do they accept those kinds of things when you bring it to them, or is that not part of
Yeah,
the job?
we actually have a client right now where we're tracking all media, and whether it's through QR codes or redirect URLs or however that is, and we've actually had to engage in the back end of their website to show them how things are connecting, because like I said before, clients aren't always able to do the most modern thing that happens, and that's why we've kind of lowered our staff so that we can increase our resources so we can tap into some really good small teams out there who specialize, because with the proliferation of media, there's so much knowledge that you need to have. It's hard for one person to be a generalist in digital.
Right.
I
Okay.
think, sorry, I think a key point that I want to make is that Eric and I actually met at one of the largest direct response agencies in the country, if not the world, a company called Rap Collins. That's where we
Right.
met over 30 years ago, about now. Um, and that, our kind of background in direct marketing and this, what Eric talked about being kind of dual role brand response type advertising serves us really well in the current environment because of what you just said, Jeff, that everything is measurable now, right? And so back in the day, unless you went in like Nielsen ratings, you couldn't measure the impact necessarily of a commercial, but you can measure every, social media ad right now. And that's something that I think it's funny. It's come around to that. It's come back around to everything is direct marketing in some ways now, you know?
Right.
So
Okay. Now the big topic that we hear all the time, we get questions about it when we hold panel discussions and things like that. Of course, is artificial intelligence. I'm curious whether A, that you work with that in your business, and B, whether that sort of thing and the rise of deep fakes and stuff like that has made your work even more difficult. First, on the first part, do you use artificial intelligence? Do you find clients come to you and saying we've got to start using AI for something, which is what they ask some of the experts that we have on? I want to use AI. What can I use it for? Are you getting the same sort of thing?
I'll take that, Eric. So it's interesting because we've gotten both. We have a client in the technology sphere who has said you may not use AI
Wow.
for
Okay.
any of our projects, which is interesting. And I do want to clarify that when we use AI to help with creative, which we do occasionally, and I'll talk about that in a second,
Okay.
we disclose that fully to the client. We don't like doing it in the background, you know what I'm saying? Because
Right. Right.
to me, I can tell when copy is written by a bot, longer form copy. Short copy is a little more difficult, but longer
Right.
form copy, I can tell. Um, so anyway, for another client, we realized that we had to generate a lot of content to help with SEO. And, generating 1,000 words 2,000 words every week or so can burn a living writer out, a
Right.
live person out. And so we talked to the client and said, would you mind if we used AI to help with this specific part of your business? And they were totally open to it. And so
Okay.
it really has taken the pressure off. So that's the case of like where AI has been very helpful, to
I'd also say that the ephemeral nature of the media these days, clients don't want to pay for Al to sit and write, the beautiful thing that's going to disappear like that. So
Right.
so we have to make what we do efficient. So that's why, like, we'll disclose, like, yeah, we'll do that for you, but without having to affect budget and to be able to work on other things, we're going to do this and then kind of edit upon that. I'll also add that I didn't realize 2 years ago that some of our art directors were using AI to change images. And I use the example, if we find an image like this, they're able to go into AI and say, I need to see all the fingers and blah blah blah. Like, they can just,
Right. Right.
and I didn't even know they were doing it, but the tools. The industry tools are keeping up with AI as well. So it's just integrated into our business.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
glad Eric made that point because I think, especially from the design point of view, they're built into the tools and it does make it very helpful. And retouching is really, really fast now. But instead of, and another thing is all these tools allow agencies, including Mint, to do it in-house. Whereas back in the day, we'd have to send it out for retouching. And now, the tools are so good that we can do it in-house. A
Okay.
lot of it.
Right. Well, that's, I mean, what the experts we ask say is that AI does what AI does well, and what you can use it for is A, it analyzes a huge amount of information very quickly, and B, can then reproduce a huge amount of information very quickly. And that's what folks seem to be settling on as a sort of ethical use of AI, for lack of a better word. It sounds like you're saying the same thing. So
Yeah, and through our rebrand, we really had to look at that and say, what is the value that after 22 years of this business, what's the value that we really bring? Because people are, I use the joke, people can barter firewood for a logo now.
right.
It's a different world than it was back then. But it's fresh thinking. It's really being able to sit with clients and listen, and we listen like we're business owners, and we give recommendations of this is how we would approach that, and these are some lines and some messages and some positioning that we feel will make the difference. I don't think yet you're getting that from artificial intelligence. You can then use those tools to get the word out quicker, to do more efficiently.
Okay. The rebrand you mentioned, your rebrand is what you were talking about.
Correct.
What was the thinking behind that? What did you try? What were you trying to accomplish?
So, I mean, for us, we have had, it's really interesting. We've had a few clients come to us that have been in business about as long as we've been in business,
Mhm.
and just maybe coming through the pandemic, saying like, I don't know, the business has changed. We want to relook at the voice you guys created for us, and in that evolution, we started doing the same thing for ourselves.
Oh, okay.
And I think our staff just really wanted to say, what is the value that we bring to the marketplace these days? And how do I describe at a cocktail party what it is that we really do? And it all boiled down to all of us just think so hard for our clients.
Okay. All right. So, given that, then, because that leads into really the next question I wanted to ask you, and that is about how the industry as a whole, where do you see it going over the next few years? What should businesses be looking for? I'm thinking particularly because our retail reporter, Kimberly Redmond, is working on a piece about retail media networks, which is a small, but lots of experts say it's going to be a growing trend with screens in grocery stores and things like that. What do you see happening? What's bubbling up that business owners, and executives should be aware of, that may be coming over the next couple of years?
Well, we've covered a couple of things already. We've covered AI, and a related topic is automation.
Mhm.
Marketing automation. I think, that is no longer kind of a niche thing, as a lot of people are doing it. But one thing I do want to say about automation that I also kind of feel about AI is that it can only do so much, and you shouldn't be overly reliant on it, in the sense of, for marketing automation, for example, I can tell when something's a bot, and if sometimes you just want to talk to a real person or get a real person, and so I would caution people to use marketing automation appropriately, but not be overly dependent on it. Because again, sometimes in the end, you just want to connect with a human. Um, Another trend, I think, and Eric, jump in whenever you want. Another trend,
Mhm.
obviously, the big news this week in the advertising world is that Omnicom is acquiring IPG. So
Yeah.
this massive company is acquiring another massive company, making an even massiver, more massive
The most
company.
massive. Yeah.
Yeah, it's massive. Anyway, but the interesting thing there is, and what I've heard is that they did it so they could offer more solutions to clients, but I think that when that happens, you can get lost in the shuffle. And I'm encouraged by, not so long ago, there was a feature in some of the marketing publications about how these big brands are open to working with smaller agencies because they're getting that more personal service, and that they might not get at a big agency.
Oh.
So I guess I would encourage people to be open to that.
Well, that's actually the next question I was going to ask was about the. I mean, I sort of half jokingly talked about print advertising, how difficult it is for publications like ours to convince folks to spend. How do you see the media advertising spending, marketing spending going over the next couple of years?
I watch like we have banking clients, and I watch how the people our age use banking, and the young people, like my my son he doesn't have a check, he doesn't go to a bet, so I think brands really just have to understand that it's not one size fits all. You really need to understand who your target market is, what their dynamic is, what media they consume, and you still have to deliver media into each of those. So there are plenty of people who want to sit and look at the GQ magazine to maybe spot Al, and there's other people who are just on their phone scrolling all day, and you need to have the appropriate amount to make sure that you're covering your clientele. Um,
Okay, well, I'm one of those dinosaurs who like to hold a magazine or a newspaper or book in my hand, so I'm still there. All right, finally, before I let you go, I'm curious about where you see your business going. Where's growth going to come from? What are you expecting? What are you planning for?
I would like to say more of the same. It's kind of like I've been looking at Al for 30 years. I've been watching my kids for 20 years. You don't maybe notice the changes, but you keep up with the times, right? So things
Right.
don't look so jarringly different. So I think we've been really good at just keeping up with the times and the media. We're very interested in where things are going. We really enjoy client questions about where they see things. Sometimes they're ahead of us on the curve, I think just having really good conversation is the key moving forward.
Okay, very good. We will leave it there. Eric Schoenfeld and Al Navarro of Mint Advertising, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you for watching. Until next time, stay safe, everyone.